Councilmember Reed, we can't hear you. Councilmember Reed?
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening, sir. We have a quorum present at the,
Great.
Diocese.
Ready to get started then. Do you mind calling the roll?
yes, I will. Councilmember Newsma?
Here.
Councilmember Burns? Here. Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly? Here. Councilmember Braithwaite? Councilmember Braithwaite is not here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome to the February 28th meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee for the City of Evanston. May I have a motion?
Recording in progress.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the minutes of the February 14th ANPW committee meeting as amended by staff earlier this afternoon. We received an email on that this afternoon.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote?
Sure. Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Aye. 4-0 in favor.
Great. All right, and that moves us to our first item of business. May I have a motion?
It actually moves us to public comment, but
I'm sorry, yes.
there is no one, oh, I'm sorry, there is a person here
We have
for,
Alexi Madden.
Alex Madden. She's coming up to the
Okay.
podium.
Okay, we'll take public comment first then.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Alexi Madden. I'm here on behalf of Doordash, a third-party delivery system. I'd like to briefly introduce you to our product, Doordash. Many of you know us through the app that you can use on your phone to order a meal from your local restaurant through pickup or delivery within a matter of minutes. But we actually have a lot more products than just our traditional marketplace. We also provide a product for restaurant companies that is called Doordash Storefront. I have a little information here I'll pass out later on that. Essentially, the storefront allows restaurants to use our technology directly with their branded website in order to take deliveries through to them. And then it is our drivers that empower the delivery portion of the meal. At DoorDash, we have several options for restaurants that prefer to deliver through us. While not all restaurants do, many choose to do so, and they can choose the plan that works for them because ultimately DoorDash wants to provide restaurants with choice. As we all know, COVID-19 has been extremely taxing on restaurants, and DoorDash recognizes that we have a special responsibility to our merchant partners, our customers, and our delivery drivers. In spring of 2020, immediately after the shutdowns happened across the nation, DoorDash voluntarily cut commissions by 50%. And we're proud to continue with our community efforts. While we completely understood and were compliant with the commission cap here in Evanston over the last 18 months or so, the time has come to lift the cap. As Evanston has just today lifted their mask and vaccination mandates, the town is slowly coming out of COVID restrictions, and we believe the cap should be included in those rollbacks. To ensure the restaurants are continuously supported, DoorDash changed the pricing model in April of 2021. We now have a 3-tiered system so that restaurants can choose which works for them. They have different products and offerings within those rates, and we encourage everyone to get on our website and check those out. We appreciate your support of the community and ask that you pass Resolution 19-R-22. And I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is consent agenda, sir.
Do we have any further public comment? Okay, and Alexi portion, and we may have questions for you. All right, so is there anything folks want to remove from the consent agenda? I would suppose the third-party delivery app issue.
Maybe A4?
Okay, A4,
A2,
A2, I'll give folks 2 seconds if you still need to go through it, unless those are the only 2 items. Do we have any further items to remove from the consent?
looks like just A2 and A4.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the Doordash item, that is a,
Oh, you want
I'd like to remove that as well.
That item is under consent, or for items of consideration,
it's
not
new.
consent.
Okay, apologies. Okay, with that, then I will have entertain a motion to move the consent agenda minus the 2 items that were pulled off.
Mr. Chair, I will make that motion to move the consent calendar, which includes item A1, approval of the City of Evanston payroll and bills list in the amount of $3,131,873.40, and also $1,547,791.15. Also, item A3, which is approval of a contract with Baker Tilly for a classification, compensation, and staffing analysis in the amount of $145,300. I will also move item A5, capital improvement program funding amendment request for the Ladd Arboretum canoe launch to allocate $133,000 for consulting services. That is the end of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Dave, may we have a roll call on the consent agenda minus the 2 items that were removed?
Councilmember Nusma,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, sir.
Great. Now we are at the items for consideration. I have a motion for the first item for consideration.
Should we not go back to item A2, sir?
Oh, apologies, yes. We can go back to item A2.
Mr. Chair, I'll move item A2, purchasing of 7 vehicles for the police department and 2 vehicles for the parking division. That includes 8 Ford hybrid police interceptors and 1 Ford Transit Connect van for a total of $326,209.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I had a
Any
question.
discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question for Mr. Cholik. We were discussing this just as I came in, but just to get it on the record. 2 vehicles for the police department, or 7 vehicles for the police department and 2 vehicles for parking, which means the parking department will use one of the police interceptor vehicles.
Yes, that's correct. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Sean Cholik, Division Manager of Facilities and Fleet Management. That is correct, Councilmember Nusma. One of those vehicles that's an SUV will be utilized by the parking manager for his parking operations. The reason why we go with a similar SUV style is this vehicle provides plenty of cargo space in the back for equipment that would be utilized for the parking operations, instead of having 2 rows of seats, or instead of having 3 rows of seats, it actually has 2 rows of seats, which makes a lot more space for equipment that they're carrying. And this is a comparable vehicle size and type to what is currently being driven by the parking manager.
And so then at some point, that vehicle may actually be repurposed for use in the police department.
That's correct. What we do is we try to standardize the type of vehicles we're using so that they can be interchanged between departments. This particular vehicle puts on a lot of mileage. It doesn't get a whole lot of rugged abuse, but a lot of mileage. And so in this case, it provides us with some flexibility to move it and repurpose it into a different operation as it gets older.
Great. And all 7 interceptor vehicles are hybrids.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions regarding this item? If not, then I will, Dave, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Item was approved 4-0. We now go to agenda
Yes.
item A4.
I have a motion for item A4.
Mr. Chair, I will move item A4, approval of the renewal of the Axon body-worn camera integration system. The total cost for this 5-year agreement is $2.5 million, with an annual payment of $311,000 due in 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. May we have staff on this?
Police Chief Eddington is at the podium, sir.
Thank you. Chief Eddington, do you mind walking through this a bit? I have a few questions, but if you don't mind giving a brief overview.
Sure. A brief overview is we initiated a body-worn camera program in 2017. That was a stair-step system where we first did patrol and added on detectives and other units later. The total cost of that contract was $1.5 million when we were completed with it. And I think that the system has proven its worth time and time again to the city and to the community. I think that is now, this day and age has become an expected aspect of police work, because the first question is, we want to see the body camera footage. And I think this system is significantly enhanced over what we had before. The email you got from me late Friday highlighted the changes in the system. Let me just touch on a couple of them. One of the transcription services has it's a transcription service, but it is much more robust than that. It can be programmed to pick up inappropriate language and flag it even before there's a complaint, so we know if inappropriate language has been used. Now, the system doesn't know who's saying it, but the supervisor will look at it to determine whether it was the officer or the citizen involved using the language. Also, one of the other upgrades that is always a concern for a police administrator is how we get the cameras turned on. With this upgraded system, we will have switch activators on the holsters of our firearms and also on the holsters of our tasers. So when either of those devices is deployed, the camera automatically turns on. And so I think this is of huge benefit as we encounter unexpected tense situations. We're going to have body camera footage of it, which I think is critically important. And I think there's a number of other upgrades in there, but I would prefer to take the questions so I can talk to what you want to know about.
Yes, I have some questions, but as chair, I will go last. Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a question, Chief, about when the camera turns on. Does it require a taser or a gun to be drawn for the camera to be turned on?
No, the officer can activate it, and
Okay.
is the custom now, if you're being dispatched to a call, you turn it on before you get there so it's rolling. Now, we get probably 3 extra minutes of a picture of a dashboard and a couple of hands driving, but the officer knows the camera's on. It's not, one less thing he has to worry about when he's on scene.
Right, and that's standard practice.
Yes, yes, and we discipline for failure to activate the camera, and so and the officers, I think now, view the camera as an assistant, a friend, a complete recording of the events. And so it's my perception that there's no resistance to the use of the cameras.
Thank you. I'll have more questions when we come around to other stuff.
Certainly. Are there any further questions on the body-worn cameras? Okay. Councilman Newsom, do you have any further questions, or?
Yeah, so the contract also includes tasers and drones, which is one of the reasons it's more than double, or it's double the cost of the last contract. There are more features in this contract.
A huge increase in features in the contract.
Yeah.
And just the transcription service I mentioned, the virtual reality training are huge upgrades in our ability to train and track services. Okay. Also, too, in this program is basically a more robust early warning system that we will avail ourselves to, that basically tracks events that would lead us to believe an officer may need some intervention before anything seriously has gone wrong. So the completeness of the system has a lot to do with that price tag and the upgrade in technology too.
Did our previous contract include the drones?
No, it did not.
Okay, so that's an addition. Do we currently have drones operating?
We have a drone, yes.
A
We
drone.
have a rather robust, shared by the police and fire department,
Okay.
and we have a robust set of directives that control how we use the drone.
And so this, well, by approving this new contract, how many drones will we be adding to the fleet?
How many, I believe it's two, I'm sorry, one, I'm sorry.
Adding one. And can you walk me through how we train the drone operators and maybe even more importantly, when and how we use those drones?
Well, there have been two, let me do the last part first. There's been two significant drone deployments since the fire and police department obtained one. One was a search for a lost child along the canal. And once again, one of the great things about this, especially for a water lakefront rescue or a canal rescue, is with the infrared ability of the camera, you're going to see the warm body against the cooler water right away. And I've been involved in several occasions here in Evanston where there's, between police and fire, there's 20 of us stand down on the lakefront with flashlights saying, I can't see anything. And this addresses that issue handily. I think the other serious deployment that we used it for was as part of a case preparation where we flew the route of a pursuit where guns were recovered at the end. And so it wasn't used during the pursuit, but to display that to the jury, we recorded that footage, and it was quite compelling information for the jurors. And so those are the two. As for training, training's been somewhat curtailed with the onset of COVID. A lot of things were curtailed, including this, but basically it's a joint police and fire training where we go out and practice flying the drone. And two, we have restrictions of if it's too windy, too stormy, we're not going to put the craft up.
Okay. What policies do we have in place that dictate when and under what circumstances we could deploy a drone? It sounds like the two examples you mentioned, would be, it's a great tool in those two cases, but what kind of guidelines exist regarding the deployment of drones?
We have a Lexipol policy manual, and our policy 606 outlines when we can use that, and that is adhered to by both police and fire. And police and fire have their own breakdown orders from there. But in that Lexipol policy, which I believe was sent to you in either over the weekend over the weekend, outlines when drone use is appropriate.
Okay, yeah, I got that email this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to dig through it, but thank you. I'm good.
Yes.
Chair.
Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. And maybe you don't have this, but do you know what the estimated flight hours were per year?
I do not, but one of the issues is with the onset of the pandemic restricted training, we were reluctant to use it except under these kind of controlled conditions or in an emergency. And also was being ready to be deployed several times, but the situation resolved itself before it was time to go up. So I would say in this particular era, it's been rather low. But I think if we take a minute and look over the rainbow, so to speak, that at some point in time, bodies like yourselves will consider the use of drones as first responders. One of the things that we most often get into situations where, in hindsight, we believe too much force was used or inappropriate force was used, it's the officer perceives him or herself in danger. Now, if we fast forward 3 to 5 years and we send the drone first, the drone gets shot, I'll just ask you guys to buy another one. It lowers that substantially. One of the anecdotal stories from this is in California, they're already experimenting with this. They got a call of a man with a gun in a park. And you can imagine how difficult that would be to navigate because there's other people in the park. They sent the drone. It turned out to be a kid playing with a cigarette lighter in the shape of a gun. So you're going to have a totally different response from the police department rather than there's a man with a gun in the park versus, hey, we looked at it, it's a kid playing with a lighter. So I think this, as we begin to peel back the options for this technology, there are many avenues yet unexplored that will be available to us when we obtain this technology.
Great, thank you. But like in terms of the current drone that we have, do we have like a total number of hours we've collected of footage?
I do
A
not have that with me. I can get it for you, but I think those 2 deployments I discussed were the most time it was airborne.
Okay, so I mean, would that be like tens or hundreds?
At this point in time, no, it would not be tens or hundreds. It would be probably more hours training than flying missions.
So like under, I just have no idea what that means. Like under 20 hours or?
I don't know. I
Okay,
will get that
gotcha.
for you, but
Okay,
I
good
will track somebody down in between now and the
Okay.
city council meeting, see if I can
And what
answer.
do we do with the footage and what's the retention policy in terms of the footage collected?
It's addressed in the order in the Lexipol and retention and disclosure of information. Within 30 days of the use of the drone, the Records Bureau supervisor shall destroy all information gathered by the drone except where reasonable suspicions that the information contains evidence of criminal activity or the information is relevant to an ongoing investigation. So basically, if it's up and nothing happens, 30 days it's gone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few, Councilman Burns, you have any questions? I have a few questions. So leaving off on Councilmember Kelly's last point, what you just said is the destruction of those records within 30 days, does that comply with FOIA?
I believe it does because the people who developed this policy for us, it's their responsibility to make sure it's integrated with Illinois law.
Okay. So I know with officer worn body camera footage, that footage must be maintained for 90 days, correct?
Yes.
And then if it's not flagged for one of, I think, 5 reasons, then that footage can be destroyed. What is the policy with dash camera? So I know body worn cameras in the state law is separate from a dash camera. So how long would dash camera footage have to be retained?
Off the top of my head, I think we're going to go the same 90 days.
Okay.
It makes it simpler for us. I could be wrong about that.
Sure.
I will check in the breaks. If the answer is different than 90 days, I will get back to you.
Okay. I would like us to, if we're keeping footage for 90 days for the officer worn body camera, or keeping footage for 90 days for the dash cameras on patrol cars, I think we should keep drone footage for 90 days. It seems like those policies seem to align. I will yield for a second because Councilmember Burns has questions.
Yes, quick question. Chief, will this drone, the new drone, will the fire department have access to it?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's a shared endeavor, and once again, it's a public safety tool. And although we're talking about in a police budget, it's our intent that it's a shared device.
Yeah, and that's my point. I like how you framed it as it's another tool for first response, no matter who's using it. But the trained person, will they be a police officer or non-police? How does that work?
Both. We will both have police officers and firefighters trained to use this device.
Perfect. So like 4-year officers now. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kelly?
Could you explain a little bit about how it's determined, like when we roll with this? I mean, is it for every call or how for every fire? I mean, when does it trigger pulling, getting out the drone?
It's
remote?
situational dependent. I would say if we have any water event on the lakefront, I imagine the fire department's going to call for it. We have any water event along the canal, they're going to call for it. And once again, their call outs will be different than ours. Something we would use it for is if we had a large scale vehicle collision where we wanted an overview of the entire area, say it would be a block long event, that's something we would use it for. And two, I think one of the critical things about this particular device now and this particular upgrade, which is connected to the price, is its ability to live stream the information back to the command post or the commanders on the ground. I think if you've ever had any command post experience, the thing that you're always worried about is making a decision with the limited information that you have. This will exponentially increase the information given to the decision makers in the command post of what are we going to do next. And so I think that is one for sure. If we have any major event, whether it's a storm, fire, flooding along the lakefront, whatever, any event like that, the people in the command posts are going to want to see this information in real time. The system allows that.
Thank you. I will, if there are no further questions, continue my questions. I'm sorry, what is the breakdown of the cost for this drone? How is that broken down in the overall?
Axon's business model is bundling. We have an Axon rep with us here tonight. And in addition to, it's part of this package. And I think if you look at the information that you received over the weekend, that if we went with the lesser priced option, which is roughly $47,000, well, just slightly less. The drone is still included in that lesser price, and so in this bundling concept, it's difficult for me to answer you that this is how much this is.
Is the representative, are you able to give us an estimate of the drone, if we were to separate the cost of the drone?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Councilmember Reed, for the question. You're approximately, it's less than 5% of the overall cost of the overall contract is what you're looking at for the drone portion specifically. I can get exact figures during the break for you, but
So what is that what is that roughly?
the exact dollar, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can look it up.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love for us to say that number. And then also, just a question, thank you very much. Thank you. For Chief, I am curious, so could this drone be used, there's, like the plain sight doctrine, could this drone be used to fly up to the second floor of somebody's apartment, and if their window happens to be open, look in? And then that would be legal from the?
No, it won't be legal. Is the drone capable of doing that? Yes, but that type of conduct is prohibited by our general orders and our
By an internal policy.
By internal policy, and,
Okay.
and there's no, and also included in the policy, it speaks to areas where people have a reasonable expectation of privacy. If you're in your fenced backyard, you have an expectation of privacy. And so for the police department to violate that expectation, we need to have a warrant. We have to go to explain to a judge why we think this is a good idea, and the judge has to agree. So this can't be a random, let's go fly over some backyards and see what we see. That is clearly prohibited by our policy.
Is it prohibited by law?
Yes, both.
Okay. I do have, a number of, I'd love to get the data that Councilmember Kelly requested. I love that this is a tool for first responders. I do see that as a benefit. What is the issue? When did we receive the drone that we have now?
It was, let me look it up. It was from a grant. The information I'm looking at, there was a resolution 1R20, January 13th, 2020.
So we received the drone that we have now in 2020.
Yes, sir.
And in the 2 years that we've had it, there have been two major instances where we've used it. I'd really love a breakdown of the hours of recording. I'd love a breakdown of the instances where this has been used beyond those two great cases. And I'm just curious why the single drone that we have now, given that it seems that there have been limited uses of the drones, why do we need another one?
I would say the one thing that I can point to is the live streaming feature. This is a game changer. If you've ever had any command post experience and you are thirsting for additional information to base your decisions on, this is a game changer. You are going to see exactly what's happening in real time, and that is going to craft the decisions that come out of that command post in a way that we've never had that opportunity before.
And do these drones have facial recognition software?
No. You could probably get one with it, but that's not part of our package.
Okay. And that's not something that they could upgrade to have? Okay.
I think.
All right, I just got a head nod from the Axon person, so that's helpful. Okay, well, those are my questions. I'm going to be.
Did you want Chief Pollip to also speak to drones?
Oh, sure, Chief Pollip, if you want to hop in, feel free.
Hi, Council. Good evening. Just to speak to your questions about the drones, Fire Department has also used the drones on several occasions, especially along the lakefront when we had that incident this summer with a few of our residents or people who came to Evanston to go swimming. We used the drone along the lakefront for that whole incident, and it was very, very helpful. It's helped us on many training events. We use it during training. We're hoping to get to a point where we can use this on working structure fires. So I would say that this drone for the fire department has been used at least 10 times, not including training that we do. So the drone is very useful. It is very appropriate for what we do. It's something that we never ever thought we would be using in the fire service. Has seemed to be a very, very useful tool, getting around the backside of a building during a fire, getting, if we ever had an active shooter event, getting the layout of a school. But the lakefront especially, this is a drone that you can talk to. I mean, as you fly the drone out to somebody who may be swimming, you can talk to them through the drone, ask them if they're okay, raise their hand so we can get a better sense of how that person is doing. And very, very useful tool. So fire department is 100% on board with having drones and multiple drones. We have one right now, and we're getting a training drone, but very useful.
So, I'm sorry, how many drones does the city of Evanston currently have?
We have one at this time.
It's the same one that you guys share. Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief Pollip, and yes, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, two more things. The number that Julie just gave me for the drone breakout is $62,558.
Thank you.
And I think that when we put that in the context of this overall price tag, I think there's value added in the drone. Also, too, to the hours that we will track down in addition to the training hours that Chief Polyp just mentioned. I think we're coming out of a really bizarre time that had we had the collective intelligence and ability to problem solve between the police and firemen that utilize this device, had they been able to do that more frequently, it would have been used more often. And so I understand the need to answer the question, and we will, but I think I'm more future focused to understand what is possible in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize.
No,
One
go ahead.
last thing. The Axon rep, Julie, will be here in between meetings to demo the virtual reality training helmet. If you're not on both committees, you may want to take a minute and experience that.
Unfortunately, I am on both committees, but I would love to experience that. Thank you. If there's no further questions from the committee, I will just say that I'm going to be voting no on this. If this was a request from the police department, from the fire department, and this was, exclusively for use in the fire department, I'd have no issue with it. But not having a deeper understanding and getting some of the, the Lexapol or Lexapro.
Lexapol.
Pol?
Pol.
Yeah, Lexapol, getting some of that information late this evening. I'm not yet prepared to support this. I think I think we have to be very careful when we put certain tools in the hands of law enforcement that could potentially lead to the violation of the rights of residents, and I just want more information on this before supporting the drone. I think the body cameras are a great tool and have added a great level of accountability and transparency to the police department. There just isn't enough transparency yet with the drone system, and I'd love to learn more. I see that Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Burns have turned on their lights. So Councilmember Kelly.
So, yeah, I can thank you for explaining the excellent use that you've put the current one that we have to use. It seems that it's been really vital and important. I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be helpful to hold it so we just in terms of being able to explain to residents why we need additional drones to get sort of hours and get a little more data on this.
I would be supportive of that, but I would be supportive of that. Councilmember, do you have anything for Councilmember Burns?
Yeah, if it doesn't have, I'm in support of it, but if it doesn't have the votes, I'd rather hold it so we can bring it back. I think it's clear that what this is for. It was described. It's not to peek in folks' windows, and this body is responsible for creating that policy. We're not community advocates at this point. We've successfully won our campaigns, and we are a part of the legislative body that would set the policy. So while I have similar concerns that have been expressed today, we just need to look at the policy to see what is established for this for use for the body or for the drones. But what was described to me, I can support. It sounds like it will be used in public places as a first response so that we can get vital information and make sure that our first responders are safe, and that we have information to make sure that our residents or anyone in Evanston who might be in harm's way, that we can get information on how to best help them and even communicate with them. So it sounds like it has some really good uses. Again, we're the body that sets the policy, so if it's a policy issue, let's, between meetings, if there is support for it, just see what the policy is. If we want to strengthen it, this is the body that can do that. But I am in support of it. Again, if it doesn't have support up here, then I'd rather it hold than die here. But I am in support.
Councilmember Kelly, I will just say that I think there are tons of things that are great tools for law enforcement, and I think that what we have to balance is, one, the cost of those tools and the use of those tools. And so if we're going to spend nearly $100,000 for a tool that is very rarely used, and again, when it is used, it's used in what has been described in very serious situations. But I just think we need to make sure that we're
But
balanced.
Chief, just to be clear, the current drone does not have the streaming feature, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, again, the current drone does not have the feature that we feel we can broaden the use of if we had that feature. So I just want to make sure that whether we hold it or whatever we do, that in between meetings that you're getting the information you need, because it was clearly stated that the difference is the current drone does not have streaming capability, which allows for some of those uses that I just described. So
The current drone has also been used twice by the police department, but 10 times, if I heard Chief Polyp correctly, by the fire department?
I only heard of one instance from the police department.
No, sir, there were two.
I'm sorry, I must have been mistaken. I heard about along the lakefront, and I thought that was a fire department mission.
That was a fire department one. The two we had were a
Yes,
missing
yes.
child and a court presentation.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Yes, Chief Polyp.
Yeah, just please understand that the drone in the first responder field is still, as you saw, it was brought in 2020. So based on manpower and how we activate and how we deploy that drone, we have to kind of alter our manpower to get it up in the air. But this is going to be the future of first responding, to keep a lot of us safe in many ways, to see things that we've never seen before. And it's very new to us, and we're really trying to take the manpower that we have and adjust it so we can get this thing up in the air more often. But this will be the future of how we see things in angles that we've never seen them before. And it's a very new piece of equipment that I know that you're not seeing the use at this time, but we're still working out ways of our normal operations and our normal business on how to get this thing up in the air as soon as we get someone free. So I do see this thing being used much more than 2 or 10 times or right now. Please understand it's a very new product that we're getting a lot of people trained up on, and to get it up in the air as often as possible. I do believe in this drone tremendously, especially on our side, and fire and police working together on certain incidents. They would be able to help us as much as we would be able to help them on their incidents. So please take that in consideration.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
So in essence, would this be, replacing the other drone, given the streaming capability? I mean, do you think, given the number of hours, that it's so limited that really the other one would probably be obsolete?
Yes.
Would we have plans to sell the other drone, or what would we do with the former drone?
Resale is always an option, using it for a trainer for the new pilots, so we're not, that would be something to consider too, because especially for the newest pilot, you really don't want them test driving this machine.
A $60,000 piece of equipment?
We don't want to do that. So it would either be a training or resale.
Okay. All right. It has been properly moved and seconded, so we'll do a voice. Oh, actually, I'm going to call a roll on this one, so maybe have a roll call. Director Stonebeck.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to our first item for consideration. That would be item A6, Resolution 16R22, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority to fund Evanston's accessible bus stop conversion project. May I have a motion to move that?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Braithwaite, seconded by Councilmember Nusma. It seems as though we have staff to speak on this, so feel free to take the floor.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, APW committee members. My name is Jessica Heinck. I am the Transportation and Mobility Coordinator for the City of Evanston. In 2018, the city conducted a pilot for converting flagged bus stops to posted bus stops. that included ADA-compliant bus stop pads on Dodge Avenue for a small segment of that street. It was a very successful project with good public support. As a result, staff submitted a grant application to the RTA to continue that work on the rest of the transit bus stop system within Evanston. In review of bus stops that would require ADA access, there were 63 CTA stops requiring ADA bus stop compliant pads, and there were 42 PACE stops that would require ADA bus stop compliant pads. The city was selected by RTA as part of the Access to Transit grant for a little over $300,000 grant program. Well, the city will receive $270,000 with a contribution of $30,000 in matching funds. The RTA will also contribute matching funds in the same amount as the city of Evanston. Staff have decided that the best course of action would be to do phase 2 engineering in-house rather than going through the federal program requirements, and that is a cost of approximately $30,000 in addition to the grant funding amount.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this? Seeing no questions, thank you, Jessica, for the work that you've led on. I'm sure this, I know that this is extremely important to our community members who have mobility, either disabilities or issues. And so thank you for leading on this, and glad to be supporting this. Seeing that there are no questions regarding this, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none opposed, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to our next order of business, which is A7, Resolution 19R22, terminating limits on third-party delivery service fees. Councilmember Burns made this reference. Is there, hello, may I have a motion?
Yeah, motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. Great. Is there any discussion on this item?
Yeah, I was just.
Member Burns.
Yeah, very quickly going to say that this was put in place at a time when it was very much so needed. At this point, not only has the occupancy limits been lifted from restaurants, but also obviously today marks the day where the mask and vaccine mandates have also lifted. So while I think there continues to be some concern from our restaurant operators about delivery caps, I think that's a different discussion at this point. If we need to lift this cap. If we want another cap for another reason, then somebody should make the referral. We should discuss it and vote on it as we do other matters. But the reason behind this cap, I think, has ended, and we should lift the cap.
Councilmember Nusma.
We talked about this several months ago, and at that time there was some discussion about the continued legality of this measure. If we vote to approve this resolution tonight, are we avoiding the threat of a potential lawsuit?
Thank you, Councilmember Nusma. Alex Ruggie, Assistant City Attorney. It would be my opinion that if we lift this now, then any lawsuit filed would be moot. But that would, of course, be up to the court system. But that would be the city's position would be that it was moot going forward.
Does the law department have a position on this resolution?
We do not. We're support of the council.
Thank you.
Any further? I will say, one, I'm extremely appreciative of Alexi. I was in opposition to lifting the caps the last time this came around. Councilmember Sufferton made a referral, and I stand by not supporting lifting the caps then. We experienced the Omicron wave that happened subsequently, and so I think this was appropriate. But also, Alexi's made herself and her team extremely accessible to myself, Councilmember Burns. I know Councilmember Nusma, I think, was able to hop on a call as well, and we were able to speak with both business owners and hear their restaurant tours and hear their concerns, as well as probably a couple of hours with emails and different calls with Councilmember Burns and I. I do think my concern with this is that if we made a mistake, the mistake was passing this by resolution. I don't know if we should, I really think, we should legislate by ordinance and not by resolution. So I think resolution should be internally facing and giving us direction. And so I think that was one thing that opened us up to lawsuit. And I do think that there may be a space in the future to look at creating caps on all kinds of services, and so I am going to be supporting lifting this cap now, seeing as where we are with COVID and the lifting of the mandates. I do think it makes sense that in respect to COVID that these caps are lifted. Seeing no further discussion. May we have we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to item A8, Ordinance 13022, authorizing the sale of aging surplus fleet vehicles and equipment owned by the City of Evanston using govdeals.com and America's Auto Auction as our auctioneers, I guess.
So move.
So moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Braithwaite. I spoke with Sean Cholik over the weekend, or late last week at some point, and got a breakdown. I'm sure Sean reached out to just about everybody on the committee. That seems to be his style. So are there any questions about this item? None. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? None. The motion passes. Item A9, Ordinance 14022, amending City Code, Title 8, Chapter 4, Section 9-2, franchise, and adding Title 8, Chapter 26, franchise haulers. Is there a motion?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Burns. Is there staff on this? Okay.
Thank you, Committee Chair Reed and council members. I'm Brian Zimmerman. I'm the solid waste coordinator for the city. New here, so thanks for having me. This ordinance is simply is structured to kind of reorganize the pre-existing or the current chapter that had dictated the primarily the commercial franchise agreement that the city has that dictates the trash and recycling services for commercial businesses throughout the city. We felt that some of the language in that chapter did not do sufficient justice on dictating terms for the other franchise agreements that the city has, including refuse for residential properties, yard waste collection, and also food waste collection as well. So in order to provide better detail to the franchise haulers themselves and also residents and our own, we felt it was best to break apart that chapter and put it into its own chapter instead of trying to fit it in the current existing one. We also took the opportunity to set up some penalties and requirements within that chapter because per guidance from legal, we felt that that was a better place to put it than in the actual service agreement. So we had a better enforcement power to do those things in that space. So those are the pretty much the tenets of why we are looking to make this change. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee on this? Seeing no questions, I'm gonna bring this up. This is a policy change, and this policy change, from my knowledge, did not go through the referrals committee, and certainly not your problem. So I certainly don't want to make it seem that way. But for our city manager and staff and the referrals committee, we set up a referrals committee process. We said that all policy changes were going to go through the referrals committee. If a council member had this same come up with the same idea and wanted to create this change, it would have to go through referrals. This is the legislative body. Our city staff should not have a faster track to legislate than the council members. So for city staff, you guys are serious about this with council members, we have to get serious about it with city staff as well, or not have a referrals committee process. With that, I'm going to be, Councilmember Kelly.
So, I mean, did you approve this agenda as chair? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the process by which this could have gone back to referrals committee.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm making the motion now. It's on the agenda, and I do not believe that the referrals committee process was meant to slow down the movement of items, but we created it for a reason. And I think that reason needs to be upheld, or we need to rethink it.
Right, but as chair, right? I mean, you approved the agenda, no?
Yes.
Or in principle, anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions on this item? I'm going to be voting no for that reason, or for the reason that I stated. Can we do a roll call vote?
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
No.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion passes. That brings us to the end of the Administration and Public Works Committee.